Portland downpour. Under a library awning, a soaked CEO meets a 9-year-old. Her cracked library card bears the name he searched for, her mother. Rain sheeted off the riverfront buildings as wind rattled signs along Morrison Street. The storm had come fast. Water gushing down curbs, buses stalled mid-route, umbrellas flipping inside out. Under a flickering streetlight, Ethan Mercer, founder and CEO of Northnode Technologies, pressed a hand to his temple. The power grid had collapsed earlier than predicted, leaving downtown in chaos. His Italian suit was soaked through. His prestigious watch blinked low battery warnings. He turned toward the nearest shelter, a public library branch, its awning trembling under the weight of rain. But before he could steady himself, a small hand tugged his sleeve. A girl, maybe 9, thin jacket plastered to her shoulders, looked up with calm, determined eyes. "Sir, you'll get sick standing there," she said. "Come under before the gutter breaks." Ethan followed her beneath the narrow awning. Water pooled around their shoes. She fished a cracked plastic card from her pocket and began fanning his face. "It helps a little," she said, matter of fact. The card's corner was chipped, the ink faded, but the name caught his eye through the droplets. Clara Hensley, guest number 1432, Riverfront Branch. Ethan froze. That name had haunted the edge of his inbox for years. One conference night, one unforgettable woman, and then silence. He swallowed hard, scanning the child's face, her calm composure. "That's your mom's card?" he asked quietly. The girl nodded. "She works the late shift. Said to wait here till she's done. But the buses stopped. The power's out." She tilted her head. "You look really pale, mister." He smiled faintly, trying to mask the thrum of recognition in his chest. "Just caught in the storm," he managed. Then, noticing her shiver, he said, "I think I can make this place warmer." With a soft voice command, Ethan accessed Northnode's emergency network. "Activate Bookmobile 2, priority route, Riverfront Branch." Within minutes, distant headlights cut through the rain, a sleek electric van humming quietly as it approached. The girl's eyes widened. "You called a rescue truck?" "Something like that." Inside, the bookmobile glowed with backup LEDs. Shelves lined with children's books, portable heaters, and a compact cocoa dispenser gave the space a gentle warmth. Ethan guided her inside first. She pressed close to the window, watching the storm blur the city into watercolor streaks. "What's your name?" he asked, pouring cocoa into a paper cup. "Lila," she said softly. "Lila Hensley." The cup trembled slightly in his hand. Hensley. The name hit him like a heartbeat in the dark. He smiled to steady himself. "Well, Lila Hensley, you just saved a man from turning into an icicle." She laughed, small but genuine. "You're welcome." Rain hammered the roof, but inside the van the world seemed to exhale. He studied the library card again, the faint timestamp on its back. Riverfront Branch. Same week as that conference 8 years ago. He wondered if fate ever moved in circles or if it simply waited for the right storm. Outside, thunder rolled over the Willamette River, echoing off the bridges. Inside, a girl sipped cocoa beside a man who had once lost everything because of a single unanswered message, and now, unknowingly, found its echo sitting right next to him. He leaned back, breath steadying. "Your mom," he said gently. "She'll be here soon?" Lila nodded. "She always comes, even in storms." Ethan's gaze softened. "Then we'll wait together." The bookmobile lights flickered, steadying again. Somewhere deep in his chest, something long quiet began to stir, a promise, faint but alive, waiting for the right moment to be spoken. Wind screamed across the flooded streets, pressing against the library's glass doors. The emergency lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. Inside the glowing bookmobile, Ethan's phone buzzed weakly, battery near zero, but his command link still held. He tapped his earpiece. "Bookmobile 2 fully deployed," came the calm voice of his assistant AI. Battery level at 82%. Estimated shelter capacity, 12 occupants. Override local schedule, Ethan said. Keep doors open through the storm. This one's going to last. Override confirmed. He turned back to Lila, who sat cross-legged on a bench, her wet socks steaming near a small floor vent. She held a picture book about rivers and bridges, tracing her finger across the pages. "This was Mom's favorite," she murmured. "She says stories are the only things that don't get ruined by rain." Ethan smiled softly. "She sounds wise." "She is. She fixes medical equipment at the clinic." Lila's voice had the calm certainty of a child who trusted her world would stay intact. "Sometimes she brings me old stethoscopes. I pretend to listen to the world." Ethan nodded, his heart tightening. "That's a good skill." When the wind howled again, she glanced up, uncertain. He shifted closer, reassuring. "It's okay. These walls can handle worse." To keep her distracted, he opened a storage panel. "See this?" He pointed to a small screen that pulsed with a blue glow. "This van runs on battery packs designed for emergencies, kind of like how your body runs on food. But this one also gives people light, heat, and Wi-Fi when the city goes dark." "Like a superhero van?" He chuckled. "Exactly like that." She giggled, tugging her knees up. "Do you drive it?" "I designed it," he said, brushing a drop of rain from his glasses. "My company builds tools that help cities stay alive when things break down." Her eyes widened. "You made the light come back?" He hesitated, surprised by the innocence of her logic. "Maybe just a little." For a moment she studied him. This tall man in an immaculate suit, now disheveled but calm, his voice even and measured. "You talk like you work with teachers," she said thoughtfully. "Not computers." He laughed softly. "That's the nicest thing anyone's told me in a while." Silence settled between them as the storm deepened. Water ran in the torrents outside, but inside the bookmobile there was only the hum of circulating air and the faint rustle of pages. Lila yawned, leaning against the bench. "Your mom must be worried," Ethan said. "Can I call her?" She shook her head. "Her phone died. She said she'd come as soon as her shift ends. She always does." Ethan looked toward the door, his expression shifting from curiosity to quiet protectiveness. "Then we'll stay right here until she gets here." He sent a discreet voice message through the company's emergency channel. "Extend shelter protocols. Check traffic camera feeds near the clinic. Prioritize pedestrians with hospital ID badges." As he waited, the bookmobile's lights dimmed to conserve energy. The girl's breathing slowed. She drifted into half-sleep, clutching her mother's cracked library card against her chest. Ethan watched her, something unspoken tightening behind his calm exterior. That small piece of plastic, faded ink, cracked corner, linked them in the ways neither fully understood yet. He leaned his head back, staring at the rain-blurred city beyond the window. "Clara Hensley," he whispered to himself. The name felt both distant and near, like a song he used to know. Outside, thunder rolled low and steady. Inside, a little girl dreamed, and a man who once believed he'd buried the past realized it had just found him again, through a child's act of kindness in a storm. Ethan checked his watch. The second hand glinted beneath the soft light of the bookmobile, but time had blurred into the rhythm of rain. The storm outside wasn't letting up, and he couldn't shake the thought of a mother fighting her way through it. He turned back to Lila. She was awake again, hugging a blanket he'd pulled from the van's storage. Her cocoa had gone cold, but she didn't seem to mind. "Does your mom know you're waiting here?" he asked gently. "She told me if the buses stop, I should wait somewhere bright," Lila said. "This was the only place still open. The librarian had to close early, but she let me sit under the awning before she left." Ethan's gaze softened. "That was brave of her, and of you." Lila shrugged shyly. "Mom says storms just make heroes tired faster." He smiled at that, the faintest trace of admiration behind his fatigue. Then his tone grew careful. "Has anyone come by to check on you tonight? Security? Maybe someone from the clinic?" She shook her head. "No one. Mom's phone died right after lunch. She said she'd walk if she had to. Ethan frowned, calculating quietly. The streets were flooded, traffic barely moving. Still, there were safe routes, the kind his company's AI mapped for emergency crews. He activated his voice link. Sierra, open regional relief channels. Prioritize foot routes between Hawthorne Clinic and Riverfront Branch. Track anyone wearing a clinic ID. A soft tone confirmed the command. He looked back at Lila, who was watching curiously. You talk to your phone a lot, she observed. He chuckled. It listens better than most people. Can it make the storm stop? She asked. I wish, he said, leaning against the window. All it can do is help people find each other faster. For a moment, silence filled the van. The hum of the heaters, the patter of rain, the distant siren of an ambulance all folded into a calm rhythm. Ethan found himself studying the child's face, the arch of her brow, the quiet steadiness in her eyes. There was something familiar in the way she looked at the world, unafraid and thoughtful. He took a slow breath. Lila, can I tell you something? She nodded. I think I knew someone with your mom's last name. A long time ago. Her eyes lit up. Really? Did she work at a clinic too? Back then she was in college. We met at a conference. She liked poetry, and she carried a library card just like that one. Lila smiled proudly. That's Mom. She reads poems to me when I can't sleep. I like the ones about rivers. Something inside him twisted, half nostalgia, half ache. He reached for the card she'd been fanning him with earlier. The crack through its corner traced perfectly between two faded stamps. Riverfront Branch. Guest number 1432. That night, he murmured, half to himself, the lights went out in the hotel ballroom. We spent an hour talking under emergency lamps. I thought... He stopped himself, shaking his head. Never mind. That was a long time ago. Lila tilted her head. You look sad. He met her gaze. The glint of his watch catching the dim light. Just remembering something I lost. Maybe tonight, I found a piece of it again. She smiled, not fully understanding, but sensing something kind behind his words. He exhaled and pressed his comms again. Sierra, confirm Hawthorne Clinic last staff releases. 2 still in transit. 1 delayed due to power failure. The AI replied. Ethan's pulse quickened. Name on the delay? Clara Hensley. Estimated arrival, 10 minutes. He felt his chest tighten. Thank you. Outside, lightning flared across the river. Inside, Lila stirred, sensing the shift in his tone. Is Mom okay? She's almost here, he said softly. Let's make sure the lights stay on until she arrives. He adjusted the van's power grid, steadying the glow. The storm roared outside, but under that hum of electricity, Ethan Mercer waited, for a door to open and for the past to step through it once more. The door burst open with a sharp clang against the bookmobile frame. Wind shoved rain into the warm light before the figure in the doorway steadied herself, soaked through but defiant. Lila! The woman gasped. Mom! The girl jumped from her seat, sprinting into her mother's arms. The two clung together, breathless, rainwater pooling at their feet. Ethan stood slowly. His posture was composed, yet his eyes, piercing blue behind those rain-speckled glasses, betrayed something far less controlled. He recognized her instantly. Clara, he said quietly. She froze mid-breath. The sound of his voice, rich and calm, carved through 8 years of silence. When she looked up, her expression flickered between disbelief and exhaustion. Ethan? The girl's eyes darted between them. You know each other? Neither answered right away. Clara brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. I didn't know you were still in Portland. I wasn't, he said. Not until tonight. Lightning flashed outside, lighting the small space in white. In that instant, Clara saw him clearly. The same strong jawline, the same calm tilt of the head that used to make her laugh when he tried to debate poetry like it was math. Only now there was something steadier about him, something earned by years of quiet responsibility. "I saw your name," he murmured, nodding to the cracked library card in Lila's hand. It stopped me cold, her breath caught. "You still remember that night?" "Every word." Clara let out a shaky laugh, disbelief and anger tangled in it. "Then why did you tell me never to contact you again? Why did my messages bounce back with your name on them?" Ethan's expression tightened. "What?" "I tried for months," she said, voice trembling. "You blocked every number, every email. I finally stopped trying." Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice so Lila wouldn't hear. "I never sent those messages, Clara. I swear to you." She flinched. "Please don't." "Listen to me," he interrupted, gentle but firm. "I didn't block you. Something else happened. I'll find out what." She stared at him for a long moment, every muscle in her face caught between hope and doubt. "You sound exactly the same," she whispered. Lila tugged her sleeve. "Mom, he helped me. He called a van and made lights come on. He said we could wait till you came." Clara turned toward Ethan again, eyes softening despite herself. "You did all this?" He nodded. "Just wanted her safe." A gust of wind rattled the van's windows. Ethan's phone buzzed with a faint alert. He glanced at it, a warning about rising flood levels downtown, but his focus stayed fixed on Clara. "Let me drive you both home," he said. "The roads aren't safe to walk." She hesitated. "I can't ask you for that." "You're not asking. I'm offering." His tone was calm, resolute. Lila looked between them, sensing something she didn't fully understand but wanted to trust. "Mom, please? It's still raining." Clara sighed, brushing her daughter's hair back. "All right, just this once." As they stepped into the rain together, Ethan held an umbrella over them, letting the storm batter his shoulder instead of theirs. On the short walk to the car, Clara glanced up at him. "You really didn't write those messages?" He shook his head. "I'll prove it." "How?" "I have access to everything. Archives, backups. If someone rerouted or faked them, I'll know by morning." Her lips pressed tight, unsure whether to believe him. As he opened the car door for her, the thunder rolled closer, echoing through the city. Inside, Lila was already nodding off, clutching the library card like a talisman. Clara buckled her in, then turned back to him. "If what you're saying is true—" She stopped, shaking her head. "Then someone wanted us to disappear." Ethan met her eyes, steady, resolute. "Then we'll make sure they don't get the last word." Outside, the rain began to ease, but neither of them noticed. The storm between them had only just begun. The next morning, the city was washed in gray light. Rain still whispered on the rooftops, softer now, but Portland looked bruised from the storm. Ethan sat in his corner office on the 27th floor of North Node's glass tower, hair still damp, tie loosened. His reflection in the window looked composed, except for the restless movement of his hands across the keyboard. Lines of code and email headers flashed on his screen as he ran old forensic filters. His security chief, Dana, stood nearby, arms crossed. "You're digging through 8-year-old data?" "Yes," Ethan said without looking up. "Clara Hensley's emails. Every one she ever sent to my private address." Dana frowned. "That was before I joined. But wasn't your assistant handling that account back then? Julia Morris?" Ethan paused, fingers still. Julia. The same Julia who'd been quietly dismissed for misappropriating client data. He straightened, voice calm but edged. "Pull her access logs." Dana hesitated. "You think she—" "I think she rerouted Clara's messages through a shadow domain." His tone sharpened, every syllable clipped. "Find any evidence of spoofed replies, signatures, metadata anomalies. I want timestamps." Within minutes, lines of proof emerged. Email threads that looked identical to his real address, but one letter off in the domain. Rerouted through an internal proxy Julia had once used to manage event confirmations. Ethan scrolled through one message that made his stomach knot. "Please do not contact me again." E-M. He leaned back, eyes hardening. She forged this. Dana exhaled slowly. I'll alert legal. It's admissible. Not yet, Ethan said. No press, no leaks. This isn't about revenge. Then what is it? Repair, he said simply. I need to show Clara the truth myself. He closed his laptop, stood, and reached for his suit jacket. His prestigious watch caught the morning light as he buttoned the cuff. And Dana, double-check Lila's and Clara's names. If anyone from the company tries to contact or profile them, they're fired before lunch. She nodded, impressed. Understood. Down in the garage, rain misted through the open entrance as Ethan stepped into his car. For the first time in years, he wasn't heading toward a meeting or an investor call. He was heading back to the River Branch Library. When he arrived, the small building still smelled faintly of wet carpet and cocoa from the night before. Lila was there already, sitting cross-legged by a heater with a book half her size. Clara was restocking a shelf, her hair still damp, sleeves rolled up. She looked up when she saw him, surprise flickering across her face. You came back. I said I would. She wiped her hands on a towel, uncertain. Did you find anything? He handed her a printed packet of emails, neatly stapled. Every message you sent. Every forged reply Julia Morris sent back pretending to be me. Clara stared at the pages, her expression collapsing from confusion into quiet devastation. She did this? She had access to my accounts back then, Ethan said evenly. She rerouted your messages and deleted the originals. I never knew until last night. Clara sank into a chair, the sound of rain faint against the windows. All this time, I thought you wanted nothing to do with us. Ethan crouched in front of her. If I had known, Clara, I would have come back. I would have been there. She blinked fast as if holding back tears. You can't rewrite 8 years. No, he said softly, but maybe we can stop letting someone else write the story for us. Silence lingered, broken only by the faint hum of the bookmobile outside, now recharging on the curb. Lila looked up from her book, smiling sleepily when she saw him. You came back, Mr. Ethan. He smiled, voice low and warm. I told you I don't break promises. Clara looked at them both, her heart a storm of emotions she hadn't named yet. Anger, relief, fear, something dangerously close to hope. Outside, the rain tapered to a fine drizzle. Inside, for the first time in 8 years, the distance between them began to shrink, measured not by time but by truth. By late afternoon, the boardroom on the top floor of North Node buzzed with restrained tension. The storm's aftermath still disrupted city logistics, and half the board members were patched in through video calls, their screens blinking against the dim, gray skyline. Ethan stood at the head of the long walnut table, sleeves rolled to the forearm of his crisp white shirt, his tie loosened just enough to show fatigue, but not defeat. The CFO, Robert Dale, adjusted his glasses and spoke first. Ethan, your decision to keep the bookmobile running through the night, uninsured, unvetted, was reckless. That unit isn't designed as an emergency shelter. Ethan clasped his hands behind his back, calm but immovable. It's designed to serve people. Its power system held steady through a Category 3 storm. Families had heat, light, and Wi-Fi when the city grid collapsed. That's not our business model, Dale snapped. We're an AI logistics company, not a relief agency. If one injury claim lands on my desk, the board will be accountable. Ethan's gaze sharpened behind his glasses. We build technology that keeps communities connected. Literacy, communication, resilience, those are lifelines, not liabilities. I'm not asking for permission to care, Robert. I'm asking for alignment. A murmur rippled through the conference line. The legal counsel coughed softly. We understand your intent, Ethan, but the financial exposure can be managed transparently, Ethan interrupted. I'm proposing a pilot program. Storm shelves. Modular library pods with battery banks, filtered air, and satellite uplinks. Open data dashboards to track costs and outcomes. public-private partnership. No hidden spending. The board chair, a silver-haired woman named Eleanor Marks, leaned forward. And your rationale? Ethan paused, letting the silence draw their attention. Then he said, because last night, a child waited alone under a dark awning. She shouldn't have had to. If our tech can change that, and we look the other way, then we've forgotten what we were built for. Even through the screen, Eleanor's expression softened. Dale, however, wasn't done. You're letting sentiment cloud judgment. A storm, a kid, a noble impulse. It's not policy. Ethan's tone cooled, every word deliberate. What you call sentiment is why this company exists. Data without humanity is noise. We lead with purpose, or we don't lead at all. The silence that followed was absolute. Rain streaked the windows, the city still wet and shimmering below. Finally, Eleanor nodded. We'll table the vote for tomorrow. Present projections by morning. Include risk metrics, social ROI, and sustainability offsets. Ethan inclined his head. You'll have them. As the screens blinked off one by one, Dale gathered his papers sharply. You're staking your reputation on this, he muttered. Ethan buttoned his jacket, posture straight. My reputation can take the weather. Can yours? Dale's jaw tightened, and he left without another word. When the room emptied, Ethan exhaled, resting a hand against the window pane. Below, the city lights glowed faintly against the river fog. He tapped his earpiece. Dana, I need you to prep full transparency reports for the pilot, community impact, battery resilience, and cost-sharing proposals. Tonight. Already on it, she said. Anything else? Yes. Send an anonymous donation to the Riverfront branch for flood repairs. Credit it from the general R&D fund. He hesitated before adding, quieter, and make sure Clara Hensley's name isn't attached, not yet. There was a pause. Understood. Ethan ended the call and stared at the reflection in the glass, his own face, tired but resolute. He thought of Lila's small voice in the storm, the cracked library card in her hand, and Clara's disbelief turning into something fragile and real. For the first time in years, the fight ahead didn't feel like a burden. It felt like atonement. Down below, the streetlights flickered on in a pattern he recognized, the same rhythm as the bookmobile's beacon pulse, a heartbeat in the rain. Proof that connection, once lost, could still be rebuilt. One light, one library, one promise at a time. The next morning broke clear and cold, sunlight reflecting off puddles like small mirrors scattered across the streets. Ethan was already awake before dawn, tie knotted, coffee cooling on his desk. The digital forensic team had worked overnight, and the final report blinked onto his screen. Undeniable proof. Forged email headers, duplicate timestamps, IP traces linking directly to Julia Morris's old access device. Every lie that had stolen 8 years of someone's life sat neatly cataloged in his inbox. He read the first fake message again. His supposed rejection, words he never wrote. Please don't contact me again. It was a mistake. His jaw tightened. For a long moment, he just stared at those words, hearing how they might have sounded to her. Then he closed the laptop and stood. By mid-morning, he was parked outside the Riverfront branch again. The bookmobile hummed softly at the curb, already surrounded by a few families recharging their phones and sipping cocoa. He stepped out, nodding to the volunteers, and walked toward the glass doors. Inside, Clara was arranging new returns, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back loosely. She looked up when he entered. The air between them felt cautious but charged with something unspoken. You shouldn't be here this early, she said. You must have a company to run. He held up a small folder. This is why I'm here. She hesitated, then stepped closer. He opened the folder, revealing printouts of the forged exchanges. I promised you proof, he said quietly. Here it is. Every message you sent, every fake one that went out in my name. The pattern matches Julia Morris's account. She rerouted your emails, deleted the originals, and even used her access token to impersonate my signature. Clara's hand covered her mouth. Julia? She was your assistant back then. She was, he said. And she's also the reason I never saw a single message from you. For a moment, Clara couldn't speak. She skimmed the pages, her own desperate words resurfacing after 8 years. I thought you just disappeared. I thought... Her voice cracked. You didn't even know about Lila? Ethan's breath caught. No, not until that storm. The silence between them filled with the weight of everything they hadn't said. Lila was at a nearby table, reading aloud to a small boy, unaware of the revelation hanging in the air. Clara pressed the folder against her chest. Why are you showing me this now? Because I don't want lies deciding what happens next, Ethan said. I'm not asking you for forgiveness. I just want truth between us. She nodded slowly, eyes shining. And what happens to Julia? Legal's handling it. But I told them no press, no spectacle, just transparency. He paused, searching her expression. This isn't about revenge. It's about repair. Clara blinked hard, tears threatening but unshed. You sound like the man I met back then. Maybe I'm trying to be him again. Her lips parted slightly, but she said nothing. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. One more thing, he said. It's a new ID card for Lila. Full membership, no expiration. Library access, bookmobile account, and disaster alert priority. She's safe on every route now. Clara took it, her fingers brushing his. You didn't have to. I wanted to. For the first time, she let herself smile. Tired, small, but genuine. You really haven't changed. Maybe just learned where to stand when the rain hits. Across the room, Lila called out, Mom, Mr. Ethan fixed the heater again. Clara turned toward her daughter, laughing through a sigh. Ethan followed her gaze. The child's voice carried warmth that softened the air. When Clara looked back at him, her tone was gentle. I'm not promising anything, Ethan, but thank you. He nodded, accepting that as everything it was. Outside, the bookmobile's lights blinked once as its systems updated. New access tags, new coverage zones. For the first time, Ethan saw his own reflection in its side panels not as a CEO but as a man still capable of rebuilding what time had broken. He glanced back through the library window. Clara kneeling beside her daughter, the cracked library card still tucked in Lila's pocket. Proof of survival, of connection, of something still worth saving. Late afternoon sunlight slanted through the library's tall windows, painting golden lines across the worn tables and the spines of 1,000 books. Outside, puddles reflected the clearing sky, but inside, a quiet ritual had begun to take shape. Every evening around 5, Ethan arrived. Never announced, never late. He would remove his suit jacket, roll up his sleeves, and sit cross-legged beside Lila at the low reading table near the children's section. Their ritual was simple. 20 minutes of reading, 2 cups of cocoa, and a quick weather check on the bookmobile panel before sunset. Ethan made it seem like a shared mission, one that gave the girl a sense of purpose. Temperature's dropping again, Lila said, tapping the screen carefully with her small finger. Does that mean it might snow? Not tonight, Ethan replied, adjusting his designer glasses. But maybe tomorrow morning. Good, she said. Mom likes the sound of snow on the roof. She says it makes the world quieter. Ethan smiled. She's not wrong. From her desk, Clara watched them, her daughter leaning easily against this man who, weeks ago, had been a stranger in a storm. The sight stirred something complicated in her chest. The tension that once pressed between them had softened, replaced by a fragile rhythm of familiarity. When Ethan helped Lila repair her frayed backpack strap with a borrowed sewing kit, Clara couldn't help but laugh. You know, CEOs don't usually thread needles. He glanced up, eyes bright. You'd be surprised what leadership requires. Patience? She teased. Mostly humility, he said, lips curving in a soft grin. And knowing when to listen. Lila tugged his sleeve. You should work here, Mr. Ethan. Mom says the library could use someone who knows how to fix things. Ethan chuckled. I might take that job. When he looked at Clara again, the warmth between them was quiet but real. They were no longer the two people separated by forged emails and years of silence. They were two adults slowly rediscovering trust through a child's laughter. As dusk deepened, Ethan helped Clara close the library. Together, they folded chairs and gathered scattered books. Lila hummed softly, arranging cocoa cups on the counter. You know, Clara said as they stacked the last chair, I used to think I had to do everything alone. That depending on anyone meant I'd lose control of my life. Ethan nodded. I know that feeling. She looked at him then, not guarded, not defensive. But last night, when the power went out again and Lila started reading by flashlight, she said, It's okay. Mr. Ethan will bring light again. I didn't realize how much she trusted you already. He exhaled, quiet emotion crossing his face. I'll do everything I can to deserve that. She's just a kid, Clara said, voice soft but steady. But she reads people better than I do. She says you don't look lonely anymore when you're here. Ethan blinked, as if the comment had caught him off guard. Maybe she's right. They stood near the door as the bookmobile lights flickered on outside, the blue glow reflecting off the wet pavement. For a moment, neither moved. Thank you, Clara said finally, for keeping your promise that night. He smiled faintly. You kept yours too. You came back. Before she could answer, a cluster of families entered, shaking off umbrellas, drawn by the warmth of the bookmobile's shelter mode. Clara turned to assist them, her calm voice filling the air. Ethan watched her, steady, capable, radiant under the soft fluorescent glow. When their eyes met again, hers lingered on his just long enough to say what words didn't yet dare. As he stepped back into the rain, he looked once more at the cracked library card Lila had left on the counter. Its faded stamp read, Riverfront Branch, Guest number 132. He slipped it carefully into his jacket pocket. A symbol, once forgotten, had become a compass again, pointing not to the past, but toward something being rewritten, one quiet evening at a time. Saturday brought clear skies and a crisp breeze rolling off the Willamette River. The riverfront branch gleamed faintly in the morning light, its old stone facade drying at last after days of rain. Ethan arrived early, coffee in hand, his mind still orbiting around the cracked library card tucked safely in his wallet. The small plastic relic had become something more than coincidence. It was evidence, a fragment of the night he and Clara first met. Inside, the library buzzed with soft weekend energy. Lila darted between the stacks, clutching a children's poetry book. Clara was at the front desk, hair pinned loosely, a pale blue sweater softening her usual reserve. When she looked up and saw him, her expression flickered between surprise and quiet warmth. "You're early," she said, smiling a little. "I had a question," he replied, setting down his coffee. "Do you still have access to old circulation logs?" She frowned, intrigued. "From when?" 8 years ago, he said softly. "The week of that conference, the night we met." Her breath caught. "Why?" "Because your library card has a timestamp," he said, producing the cracked card. "And I think it matches the night everything changed." Clara hesitated, then nodded toward the back office. "Come on, let's see what we can find." They slipped behind the desk and into the small records room, its fluorescent lights humming quietly. A kind-faced librarian named Mrs. Delaney looked up from her desk. "Morning, Clara. Who's your guest?" "A researcher," Clara said with a smile, "looking for a very specific piece of history." Mrs. Delaney chuckled. "Aren't we all?" She turned to Ethan. "What year?" He told her, and within minutes she was scrolling through the digital archives. "We upgraded that month," she said. "Lucky for you, the logs are clean." Ethan leaned closer as the old entries appeared. Patron, number 132, book title, The River Keeps Its Secrets. Checkout time, 9:47 p.m. "That's the book," Clara whispered. "The poetry anthology we read together." Mrs. Delaney looked up, amused. "Oh, I remember that night. The power went out, didn't it? 2 young people sat right there by the window with a candle. Everyone else went home. Clara laughed under her breath, a flush rising to her cheeks. That was us. Ethan smiled faintly, eyes soft behind his glasses. I guess fate keeps better records than we do. Mrs. Delaney printed the page for them. Take it. Proof that some stories start in the dark. As they stepped back into the main hall, Clara shook her head. You really didn't have to go this far. I wanted to be sure, he said. That night was real. The world tried to erase it, but it's still here. She held the printout in her hands, the library's old logo faint but clear. You don't need to convince me anymore, Ethan. I think I do, he said quietly, not with words, with time. Before she could answer, Lila ran up, clutching 2 cocoa cups from the bookmobile. Mom, Mr. Ethan, they're giving out free bookmarks again. Clara knelt to take one. It was a small slip of blue cardstock with silver lettering. Read, remember, return. Lila grinned. See? They even rhyme like poems. Ethan took the other bookmark and looked at it for a long moment. Then, with quiet deliberation, he slid the cracked library card into the same sleeve and handed it back to Clara. Keep it safe for her, he said softly. Some things belong with their story. Clara's fingers brushed his as she took it. And what about you? I'll just keep coming back to check it out, he said, a smile ghosting across his face. She laughed, low and surprised. You always did know how to end a sentence. Their eyes lingered, the air warm with unspoken meaning. Lila tugged their hands, leading them toward the reading circle where children's voices rose in laughter. Behind the desk, Mrs. Delaney watched them go, whispering to herself with a knowing smile. Some books really do find their way home. Outside, the wind shifted off the river, carrying the scent of rain yet to come, but this time it smelled like renewal, not loss. By Monday morning, Portland's calm returned, but calm rarely lasted long in Ethan Mercer's world. At North Node headquarters, the day began with chaos. An intern's whisper spread faster than wildfire. A gossip blog had posted a blurry photo of Ethan stepping out of the library beside Clara and Lila. The headline read, Storm Hero CEO and the Mystery Mother, Secret Family or PR Stunt. Within hours, reporters flooded the building's lobby. The company's PR director, Annika, stormed into Ethan's office holding a tablet. You need to make a statement, right now. Ethan looked up from his desk, the morning light glinting off his designer glasses. No. Annika blinked. No? Ethan, this is trending. You and a child. People are speculating. If you don't clarify, it'll spin out of control. I'm not feeding speculation with half-truths, he said firmly. This isn't about damage control. It's about dignity. Then at least deny it, she urged. Say, they're just acquaintances, library volunteers, anything. He set his pen down. And lie? Not happening. Annika's tone softened. Ethan, I know you want to protect them, but silence is dangerous. He stood, adjusting his cufflinks. Silence isn't dangerous. Exploitation is. Draft a statement, but not about my personal life. We focus on storm shelves. Release the pilot data, community benefits, cost transparency. That's the story. Annika hesitated, then nodded. Understood. As she left, Dana buzzed through the intercom. The board's requesting a private meeting. They saw the post. Ethan sighed. Of course they did. Minutes later, he entered the conference room. Robert Dale was already there, smirking slightly. I warned you, Dale said. You blur the line between business and sentiment, and suddenly you're on gossip blogs. Ethan kept his expression neutral. And yet, public support for storm shelves has tripled overnight. Donations are flooding in. Funny how empathy works. Dale frowned. This isn't good for optics. A mystery child? Questions about paternity? Investors hate ambiguity. Ethan leaned on the table, voice calm but steel-edged. Then they can call me directly. I'll tell them this company stands for connection. Not the kind they can exploit, but the kind they can trust. That's the story we'll own. Eleanor Marks, the board chair, looked at him thoughtfully. And the woman and child? They're not a story, he said. They're people. I won't use them to prove my worth. Eleanor nodded slowly. That's the right answer. Proceed with your pilot launch. After the meeting, Ethan drove straight to the library. He parked discreetly, but Clara was already waiting near the entrance, her expression wary. You saw it? She asked before he could speak. I did. Her jaw tightened. My co-workers did too. Some think I'm part of a cover-up. I had to send Lila home early. He exhaled, regret flashing across his face. I'm sorry. I should have predicted this. She folded her arms, her voice trembling between frustration and fear. I didn't ask for this attention, Ethan. Lila didn't either. I know, he said quietly. And I'll make sure it stops. No interviews, no headlines, no comments from me. She hesitated, studying him. You'd stay silent, for us? For you, he said softly, and for her peace. The conviction in his voice steadied her, though uncertainty still lingered. What if it gets worse? Then we weather it, together. Her gaze softened just a little. You still talk like the world listens when you speak. He smiled faintly. That's the problem with CEOs. We forget the best things happen when we listen instead. They stood in quiet for a long moment. Inside, the bookmobile glowed faintly from across the street, a silent witness to everything they couldn't yet say aloud. Finally, Clara took a breath. What happens next? Ethan looked at her gently. We let truth live without a spotlight, and we keep doing the work that matters. Outside, a gust of wind carried away the last of the morning fog, clearing the sky. The storm had moved on, but its echo remained, reshaping lives, quietly, without fanfare. By Friday, Portland was braced for another storm, but this one, at least, was planned for. The Storm Shelves pilot was set to launch at 3 library branches across the city. Trucks loaded with modular pods, each equipped with battery banks, filtered air, child-safe charging ports, and satellite Wi-Fi, rolled out under North Node's faint blue insignia. The local news caught wind, cameras swarming the riverfront as volunteers set up. Ethan stood under the awning of the riverfront branch, a sleek rain jacket covering his tailored suit. Clara was beside him, clipboard in hand, her hair braided back. She had volunteered to coordinate the first branch installation, her natural steadiness an anchor for the chaos around them. Lila was inside, arranging books on the new storm reading nook display, humming softly to herself. A young reporter approached, microphone ready. Mr. Mercer, some are calling this an unprecedented use of a corporate tech for public infrastructure. What made you take this direction? Ethan adjusted his glasses, tone even. Because resilience starts where connection begins. Libraries have always been safe harbors, places where knowledge and community survive the worst weather. We just gave them better tools. Is this connected to last week's viral photo of you at this branch with Storm Shelves is the story today, he interrupted, polite but firm. Everything else is private. The reporter, recognizing the boundary, nodded and backed away. Clara glanced up at him, relieved. You handled that well. I've had practice, he said lightly. She smiled faintly, then gestured toward the data panel. Come see this. On a small monitor near the bookmobile, live metrics ticked upward. Kilowatt hours saved, emergency calls reduced, student logins increasing by the hour. The numbers are incredible, she said. You're proving them all wrong. He shook his head. We're proving it. As the afternoon wore on, the pilot drew families and students alike. Children clustered near charging stations, reading by soft LED light. Elderly residents used the Wi-Fi to contact relatives in flooded neighborhoods. The hum of community felt electric, real, tangible. By evening, Eleanor Marks called from headquarters. Ethan stepped aside to answer. The board reconvened early, she said, voice steady but cautious. Dale opposed expansion, but the data forced a vote. And the motion passed, barely. Storm Shelves is now part of North Node's humanitarian arm. Ethan allowed himself a small, quiet smile. "Thank you, Eleanor." "You earned it," she said, "and the city noticed. You might want to check the live feeds. Your pilot's trending under #Read in the Storm." He laughed softly. "For once, that's a headline I'll accept." When he returned inside, he found Clara and Lila at one of the new tables, sharing cocoa as the storm gathered strength outside. The bookmobile glowed behind them, warm against the gray. "How'd it go?" Clara asked, reading his face. He pulled off his jacket and sat beside them. "Approved. Fully funded. It's official now." Lila's eyes widened. "Does that mean the lights will stay on forever?" Ethan smiled, reaching over to ruffle her hair. "That's the plan." Clara looked down at the cracked library card, still tucked safely beside her notebook. "All because one girl helped a stranger in the rain." Ethan met her gaze, his voice low and certain. "I don't think either of us were strangers that night." For a moment, everything slowed. The hum of generators, the murmur of voices, the steady rhythm of rain against glass. He looked toward the families reading beneath the soft light of the Storm Shelves pods and felt something inside him settle. For once, his world of metrics and projections had given way to something immeasurable. Outside, thunder grumbled over the river, but inside, laughter drowned it out. The storm had returned, but this time they were ready. 2 days later, the rain came harder than before, dense, relentless, silver sheets drumming on the library roof. The Storm Shelves pods glowed steadily through the downpour, humming like beacons. Inside, the riverfront branch was packed. Families huddled near the heat vents, children coloring on the floor, elderly residents sipping tea while charging their phones. Ethan stood near the back office, his phone vibrating with an urgent message from legal. The subject line was short, sharp. "Morris Settlement. Signed." He stepped outside under the awning to read the details. Julia Morris had agreed to a private settlement, full handover of data logs, written confession, and a non-disparagement clause. No court filings, no press, quiet closure. Ethan exhaled, tension leaving his shoulders. It wasn't victory, it was accountability. He texted Dana, "Close the file. Archive everything under restoration, not retaliation." Then, without hesitation, he opened his photo gallery, snapped a picture of the signed audit report, and sent it to Clara. No caption, just proof. A few minutes later, she appeared in the doorway, umbrella in hand, hair slightly damp. "I got your message." He nodded. "It's over." She looked at the screen, the signature shining under his thumb. Her voice trembled slightly. She admitted it. "Yes," Ethan said. "All of it." Clara's eyes filled, not with triumph but with a fragile relief that bordered on grief. "You could have dragged her through the media. Why didn't you?" "Because the truth already did the work," he said quietly. "No one needs to suffer more for it." She studied him for a long moment, seeing the steadiness in his face, the kind of power that didn't need to shout. "I thought billionaires loved the spotlight." "Some do," he said, smiling faintly. "But I've learned there's more strength in a quiet room and a signed page than in 1,000 headlines." She took a deep breath. "So, what happens now?" He gestured toward the library behind her. "Now we keep showing up. Every storm, every branch, every night a kid needs light." Clara nodded slowly. "You really mean that?" "I do." They stood side by side under the awning, rain cascading down in silver ribbons. Inside, Lila's laughter rang out as she read to a younger child. "You know," Clara said softly, "for years I carried anger I didn't know what to do with. I thought you'd chosen to vanish. I hated you for that." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You had every right to. But when I saw you that night with her, something shifted." She paused, voice trembling. "You didn't come back to explain yourself or defend anything. You just showed up when it mattered. That meant more than I thought it would." He turned to her, rain glittering in his hair, eyes steady and blue behind his lenses. "Then let me keep showing up." She smiled, tired but genuine. "We'll see." Before she could step away, her phone buzzed. She frowned. "It's the clinic. They're underwater near the east wing. Power's flickering again." Ethan straightened instantly. "How many inside?" "2 staff, maybe 3 patients." "Let's move." They ran through the rain to his car. Within minutes, Ethan had activated the North Node field network, rerouting a mobile pod to the clinic coordinates. On the dashboard, maps glowed with pulsing icons. Clara clutched the door handle, watching him work. Commands flowing with calm precision, voice steady under pressure. "You've done this before," she murmured. He nodded. "Every storm is a test. We just finally have the right answers." When they arrived, the street outside the clinic was half flooded. Ethan pulled on a utility jacket and splashed through knee-deep water to guide the pod's placement. Lights ignited, warmth spreading through the soaked air. Inside, the clinic staff looked up in disbelief as backup systems hummed to life. Clara joined them, assessing vitals, reassuring patients. Ethan stayed at the doorway, soaked to the bone, but smiling faintly as order returned to chaos. Later, as the last patient was moved to safety, Clara turned toward him. "You didn't have to come. I told you, I don't send promises, I keep them." For the first time, she reached out, taking his hand. "Then maybe I should stop doubting that." The storm outside roared on, but between them there was stillness, a quiet recognition that sometimes redemption doesn't arrive with thunder, but with steady hands in the rain. The next evening, the city glowed under a fragile calm. Floodwaters had receded, and the riverfront branch pulsed with soft light once again, its windows fogged from the warmth inside. For the first time in weeks, there was no panic, no alerts, no boardroom distractions. Just the quiet hum of normal life returning. Inside, the library smelled faintly of cinnamon cocoa and drying pages. Clara was rearranging a new shipment of donated books when Ethan appeared at the door, sleeves rolled up, holding a small brown bag. "Dinner delivery," he said, smiling. "And before you ask, it's not catered from a boardroom. It's chili from that cafe you love on Division." Her eyebrows lifted. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything that matters," he said softly. From the back table, Lila waved. "Mom, Mr. Ethan brought cornbread too." Clara shook her head, but there was warmth in her voice. "She's already claimed you as family, you know." Ethan laughed quietly, setting the food on a nearby table. "Then I better earn the title." They ate together after closing, seated near the reading corner beneath the soft hum of the storm shelves unit. Lila told stories about her classmates, her cocoa mustache making both adults smile. For a while, the storm outside their lives felt like something distant, something that couldn't reach them here. When the last of the cocoa was gone and Lila began to doze with her head on her mother's lap, Clara whispered, "She hasn't laughed like this in years." Ethan looked at her, his tone gentle. "Neither have you." Her eyes met his. "I used to think happiness was something you had to earn after enough struggle, but watching her with you, I realized it's something we can just allow." He smiled faintly. "I've spent most of my life trying to control outcomes, but the best thing that's happened to me came from a blackout, a cracked library card, and a little girl who refused to be scared of thunder." Clara exhaled a quiet laugh. "You always were too poetic for your own good. I think I learned that from someone." Silence lingered, warm and easy. Then Lila stirred, blinking sleepily. "Mom?" "Yes, baby?" "Can we invite Mr. Ethan to family reading night next week?" Clara hesitated. "It's really for parents and kids." "But he reads with me every day," Lila said, stubborn in the way only children can be. "That counts." Ethan looked down, uncertain for the first time in a long while. "I wouldn't want to." Clara stopped him with a small smile. "We'd love that." Lila grinned and snuggled back into her mother's arms, satisfied. Later that night, after closing, Ethan stayed to help tidy up. Together, he and Clara stacked chairs, turned off lamps, and locked the door. The city outside shimmered with reflections, lamplight on wet streets, the river moving slow and steady. They paused under the awning, side by side. "She's going to expect you there, you know," Clara said, half teasing. "I wouldn't dream of missing it," Ethan replied. The rain had stopped, but drops still fell from the roof, catching in her hair like tiny stars. He reached out instinctively, brushing one from her cheek. She didn't pull away. "You've changed, Ethan," she said softly. "You used to look at the world like it was something you had to fix. And now? Now, you look like a man who finally found a reason to stay." He met her gaze, steady, blue, unguarded. "Maybe I did." For a moment, the air between them was still, balanced on something fragile and real. Then Clara broke the silence with a whisper. "We should go. It's late." He nodded, stepping back as she turned toward her car. Lila waved from the passenger seat, her little hand pressed to the window. Ethan waved back, watching as they drove off down the glistening street. When the car disappeared around the corner, he slipped his hand into his jacket pocket. His fingers brushed the cracked library card, now warm from his touch. He smiled to himself, a quiet promise forming in his chest. Don't just build systems that keep people safe. Build moments that bring them home. And somewhere behind the clouds, the storm broke for good. Rain returned that weekend, but this time it came softly, more a memory than a warning. A drizzle misted over Portland's bridges as streetlights shimmered across the Willamette River. Inside the riverfront branch, families gathered beneath the steady glow of the storm shelves' pods. It was family reading night, and the building hummed with quiet joy. Clara adjusted a tray of cocoa cups near the front desk while Lila taped handmade paper stars to the wall. "Mr. Ethan's going to be late," Lila fretted, checking the door every few minutes. Clara smiled. "He's never late, honey. He'll be here." Outside, a sleek black car pulled up. Ethan stepped out, umbrella in hand, wearing a navy overcoat over his suit. His hair was damp from the mist, and behind his glasses his blue eyes carried a warmth that hadn't been there months ago. When he entered, the children cheered as if a superhero had just walked in. Lila ran up, throwing her arms around his waist. "You came!" "I promised I would," he said, smiling down at her. He handed her a small gift, a slim, leather-bound notebook embossed with silver letters, "For new stories." She gasped softly, tracing the cover. "Now you can write your own," he said. "Every great reader becomes a storyteller one day." As the event began, Clara watched from the side as Ethan knelt among the children, reading from The River Keeps Its Secrets, the same anthology they had once shared years ago. His voice was calm, deep, and alive with meaning. The children leaned in close, hanging on every word. When the reading ended, applause filled the room. Lila beamed. "You read just like Mom does." Ethan smiled. "Then I'm in good company." Later, as the families drifted out and the lights dimmed, only the three of them remained. The rain tapped gently against the glass, a soft rhythm that seemed to echo their breathing. Lila curled up with her new notebook at a corner table, drawing stars in the margins. Ethan turned to Clara, his voice low. "I never thought a library would feel like home again." Clara looked at him, her expression tender. "Maybe home isn't a place. Maybe it's people who stay when the storms hit," and he nodded, eyes glinting. "Then this time, I'm staying." For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Lila's small voice broke the quiet. "Mom, can we take a picture?" Clara laughed. "Of course." Lila handed Ethan her notebook and posed between them, her grin wide and unguarded. The librarian snapped the photo. The flash caught their reflections in the window. 3 figures framed by rain and light. Afterward, Ethan bent down, whispering to Lila, "You should keep something for luck." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the cracked library card, its surface worn smooth by time. "You mean this?" He hesitated, smiling softly. "That's a good one." Lila studied it for a second, then pressed it into his hand. "You can keep it safe now. You remember everything." Ethan knelt, eyes bright. Always. When he looked up, Clara's gaze met his, steady, certain, forgiving. Something unspoken passed between them, quiet and full of promise. As they stepped outside under the awning, the drizzle softened into mist. The glow of the storm shelves spilled onto the sidewalk, casting them in light that felt less like invention and more like hope itself. "Next week," Clara said, "we're hosting a fundraiser for the new reading pods. You'll be here?" He smiled, slipping the library card into his coat pocket where it rested over his heart. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." The rain fell in the silver threads as they walked down the steps together, Lila skipping ahead under the shared umbrella. The air smelled of wet paper and new beginnings. And somewhere above the city, above the rivers, the rooftops, and the faint hum of the lights he'd built, Ethan finally felt what he'd been searching for all along. Not redemption, but belonging. The cracked library card, once just a relic of loss, had become a symbol of everything he'd found again. Trust, love, and the quiet courage to stay when the storm passes.